this idea of a bootstrap. You know, this idea and this metaphor of a bootstrap started off as a joke because it's a physical impossibility to lift yourself up by a bootstrap, by your shoelaces. It's physically impossible. The whole thing is a joke.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she cracked the code. She's on to it. That's it. The universe is her oyster or something like that. What a genius. What a genius she is. A very good Monday to you once again, and welcome. We remain at 888-630-9625. And I was reading this Robbie Starbuck on the Twitter, on X, with a fun item over the weekend. A conservative social media guru is Robbie Starbuck, and he wrote the Weather Underground. You know, they were the Weather Men, but then they decided as a terrorist group, robbing armored cars and shooting the police and funding the communist revolution. And then they decided that it was sexist to call it the Weather Men because some of them were not men. And back then, when they weren't men, they were women. Today, with the Democrat Party, you never know because it's like a crazy herd of cattle running in every direction at once. Robbie Starbuck wrote, the Weather Underground terror group has been reborn. We must not make the mistakes we made by the last time by giving light sentences or no sentences at all. These terrorists became thought leaders on the left because of it. We must be relentlessly punishing. No mercy can be shown. Now, what is Robbie Starbuck talking about here? He's talking about the fact that the Democrats firebombed the RNC headquarters in New Mexico over the weekend, that they're terrorizing Tesla owners and Tesla dealers, and they're firebombing and shooting up places with rifles, and then the Democrats say, oh, it's their protected First Amendment rights. You know, they've got lots of First Amendment rights to exercise. Usually involves a lot of violence and possible firebombs and rifles because we're the left, we're Democrats. And Robbie Starbuck is right, of course, the Weather Underground. And let's look at William Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, who were terrorists, American terrorists, left-wing radical communists, anti-American, anti-capitalist, violent criminals. And instead of being sent to prison for 50 years, they were given tenure. They didn't get 10 years. They got tenure on major American campuses because they've been hotbeds of mental illness for decades now. And these are the universities that raised the violent rabble, genocidal, Jew-hating lunatics that honestly, and William Ayers and Bernadine Dorn. And then they raised the bastard children who other terrorists left on their doorstep who went on to become prosecutors and free the criminals and all that. But Robbie Starbuck is talking about the left. They, come on. You got a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer who shot and nearly killed Congressman Steve Scalise on a baseball field with a Chinese combat rifle. He had wanted to kill the entire baseball team of Republican members of Congress. President Trump, and that was a suicide attack, yet another Democrat Party suicide attack, a murderous suicide attack, trying to kill the entire Republican baseball team practicing for the annual congressional baseball game. And crazy Ron DeSantis was there that day. He left before the shooting started, but just barely. And the Democrats, violent criminals that they are, another suicide attack on President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. This weekend, they were attacking Tesla dealerships and firebombing the Republican Party headquarters in New Mexico. I don't think CNN's reported it yet because they don't really report the news. No, they don't. So we've got that going for us. And Robbie Starbuck is right. I'm with Robbie Starbuck. And the Democrats, in the meantime, the pragmatic and moral case to sell your Tesla. Sure. While CNN excitedly Over 200 Tesla takedown protests take place throughout U.S. on Global Day of Action against Elon Musk's role with Doge. There's one thing, they like to firebomb, they like shooting people, but one thing they really don't like is government efficiency. That infuriates them. And if the most successful people in the world gather to say, how can we do things better? The Democrats threaten to kill them because that's your Democrat Party. Now, the Mass Live out of Massachusetts, they had Tesla protests there over the weekend on their day of rage, their day of violent criminal rage, their day of fascist rage. And they call everybody else fascist while they're firebombing you and shooting you. Isn't that fascinating? And demanding that all the Jews leave campus and leave Israel. And they chant from the river to the sea because, in fact, we have some of their stupid chants from over the weekend. They hand out little cue cards like they do with Joe Biden, so they know their chants. But Mass Live, lefties, Tesla Takedown Day draws hundreds in Hadley. Hadley, that's a Hadley, Massachusetts. And this is pretty remarkable stuff, I got to say. International, it's an international, not just national, it's international. It's the International Tesla Takedown Day. Saw Western Massachusetts demonstrators gather several hundred, it's just amazing, behind a Pride convenience store. Is that a rainbow gay convenience store? Because they, you know how they do that. Pretty amazing people, these people. But they gathered at the Tesla supercharger station. They had a Tesla supercharger station, and they're there to destroy it and burn it down and stuff because they're violent criminals, aren't they? Yes, they are. And this is where one of the guys, a protester, showed up in his Tesla because, he had a Tesla and now he's stuck with it. And he says that everywhere he goes, people spit on him and spit on his car and throw things at his car because liberals, as they like to self-describe, are violent and criminally insane. And pretty much obvious everywhere you look, firebombing the RNC headquarters and attacking, posting videos, calling on Democrats and illegal aliens to shoot every ICE agent they see. And I got to tell you, that he should be in cuffs before the sun goes down today, I must say. But this is classic out of Massachusetts because they're angry, they're filled with rage. And one of the guys, and this one did make me laugh, one of the guys at the Tesla station said, I bought my Tesla in 2018 because I wanted to save the planet. And now everywhere I go, people are spitting on me and throwing things at my car and threatening me and calling me names. And all of that is fine because Democrats, right? And it's not even news. CNN doesn't report this because they're not a news organization. But the Democrats are so insane and so regularly violent that all of this has been made perfectly normal. Perfectly normal. You're a Democrat Party. Yes, sir. Firebombing RNC headquarters, terrorizing Tesla drivers, Tesla dealerships, firebombing Teslas and Tesla dealerships, shooting up with rifles Teslas and Tesla dealerships, and the news media ignores it. I'm talking about, not some news media ignores it. Pretty much all of them completely ignore it because they, too, are the left. And what do they want? They want power. When do they want it? Now. You people, can I just say? Now, let's go to soundbite number one. Charlie Hurt of Fox News was out over the weekend with a camera. Asking people And it looked like they didn't recognize him because they get their news from MSDNC and CNN, and they don't recognize anybody who's not on MSDNC and CNN, and that's why they're firebombing and shooting places and self-immolating and suicide attacks and attempted assassinations all over the place and all that stuff. But Charlie Hurt asking Democrats who are protesting against Tesla, which they loved about 2 minutes ago, and I loved the guy protesting in Massachusetts, just had a big sign he made himself, said, "I hate Elon Musk." That's it. That's the whole sign. That's what the sign said. I hate Elon Musk. The Democrat Party is a hate cult, a violent criminal hate cult. I don't know how you can describe it any other way. And our second caller today in the last hour, Greg from Falls Church, Virginia, talking about yesterday, Sunday, having lunch, breakfast with his friend of 15 years. And his friend told him yesterday, "I don't think we can be friends anymore because my 401k is down." Now, there are words to describe people like that. They're impolite words. But we'll just say he's got a tiny, tiny little brain, Tardo. And isn't that amazing? Charlie Hurt asking people, what do you have against Elon Musk? Why do you hate Elon Musk so much?
What's wrong with Elon Musk?
Yeah, well, first of all, he came here as an illegal alien, documented immigrants, first of all. Second of all, he's a fascist with Nazi salutes.
All right. Sure. First, but you guys love illegal aliens. What if he were only a child sex trafficker or a fentanyl trafficker as an illegal alien, a gang member from Venezuela? You'd invite him into your daughter's bedroom and have him hide under the bed because you people are mentally ill. Wait, he's an illegal alien. Again, they love illegal aliens unless they're on our side. First of all, he's not an illegal alien, but he's imagining in his demented, mentally ill, crazed, insane, violent brain that Elon Musk is an illegal alien, and because he's on our side, he's against him. Now, if he were a criminal, rapist, murderer, gang member from a third world hellhole, then he would be very much in favor of him. But he's an illegal alien, and the Nazis salute. That is, the Democrats pulled a freeze frame of Elon Musk waving to a crowd. It was like a stadium full of people or something. And Elon Musk waved to the crowd, and the Democrats used a freeze frame like Nazis used to do and said, "Oh, look, he's doing a Hitler salute," because he was waving with his right hand. That's pretty funny stuff. But he's an illegal alien. Mm-hmm. And the mental illness of these people is really something breathtaking. Now, there are two women from New York who are protesting against Elon Musk and against Tesla. And Charlie Hurt asked him, "Hey, what do you think of Elon Musk?"
Do you think Elon Musk is a Nazi?
Yes, he's a fascist because he is blatantly trying to dismantle democracy in the U.S.
Well, I think that Elon Musk is showing us signs of being a Nazi.
Right. And then they sent a check to Planned Parenthood to harvest the organs of 40% of the unborn black population in America while chanting, "Get Jews off campus and from the river to the sea." No sense of irony. I think the only thing worse than a Nazi movement rising up in your country is a Nazi movement of incredibly stupid people. The only thing that can make Nazis worse is if they were so stupid that they're more dangerous this time around than they were the last time around. The one thing, the Nazis, my father had to go kill Nazis when he was in his 20s because it's what everybody was doing, and he wasn't much of a trend follower, but he went along with that one. And here they go because he's on our side.
I've been spending a lot of time thinking about it, and I think I'm at the point where I have to say, yes, he's a Nazi.
We're not protesting all electric vehicles. We're protesting Tesla, which is owned by a fascist man-child.
A fascist man-child. This is your Democrat. And then they firebombed, this and that in the Republican Party headquarters in New Mexico, and they wrote that ICE This is what they spray painted when they burned the RNC headquarters in New Mexico, the statewide headquarters. They spray painted ICE equals Nazis, because that makes sense. Your Democratic Party is a dangerous, criminal, mentally ill gang of miscreants. If you're related to any of them, don't talk to them anymore. Just kidding. That's you shouldn't cut them. You should try to help the poor, dim-witted little people. Isn't that amazing? You know, this country was built on hard work and grit. And whether you're standing long hours every day, running errands, chasing the kids, just doing your part to keep the world turning on its axis, you shouldn't have to deal with fatigue and foot pain. And that's why G-Defy shoes, built with patented VersaShock technology. I wore mine yesterday, hiked about 4 miles down in the mall, cherry blossoms and all that. The FTC has authorized G-Defy to tell all of us that these shoes can help relieve minor occasional pain associated with walking and running and prolonged periods of standing. G-Defy shoes help to absorb harmful shock, align your body, improve your biomechanics, and return energy with every step. My best girl and I went, honestly, hiking on the mall yesterday. Get 50% off your order of $120 or more right now by texting Chris, that's me, to 91888. Or head to Al Gore's Amazing Internet to gdefy.com and use the code Chris there to get 50% off. That's the code Chris at 91888 or on Al Gore's Amazing Internet. With G-Defy's 60-day risk-free trial, you've got nothing to lose. Message and data rates apply. Yeah, I know the Democrats. They've had an especially crazy weekend. More on them coming up. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. All right, my cup runneth over once again today, but let's go to the phones. Let's go to Rob, calling from Montgomery County, Maryland. Robert, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris, good morning. It's always a pleasure. You start my week on the right foot, not the left, the right foot.
Excellent.
Anyway, I have a new one for you. A couple things. I'll make it as quick as I possibly can because there's a lot of nice people to call in. I live here in the People's Republic of Maryland in the county that is famous for a lot of people that kind of landed here within the last 3 or 4 years, kind of unexpectedly.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there's a lot of Teslas in this area. Tons and tons of Teslas. I see them all day long because I drive a bus.
Uh-huh.
And I'm wondering when the mayhem is going to start within all the people that live here, because the funny thing about this county is the majority of these people that own these are on the other side of the fence. So I'm wondering when that's going to start here. I haven't heard a peep yet. The other thing I wanted to mention was this, Wes, I have to give my cousin credit for this.
Yeah, I'm running out the clock on you here. I'm sorry to say. Yeah, Wes Moore tax more. Man, oh man. Our Democrat Party. Who's a bigger threat? Iran or the Democrat Party? There's where's this professor from? He's a Yale professor. Yale. He's a Yale professor. Yale ain't what it used to be. I'm not sure it ever was. Now that we've learned so much about Yale and the poison ivies and all that. But this is great. The Mirror. That's an old newspaper. And The Guardian. That's in the United Kingdom. Yale professor who studies fascism fleeing U.S. to work in Canada, where he's going to wear an armband, I think. He studies fascism. He must be good at it, don't you think? His people are really something. They love these. They love calling everybody fascists and Nazis, while they literally, Roe versus Wade was overturned in the United States. And the next year, There are more than 1 million abortions in the United States, get about 40% of the black population every year in the womb. More parking for you and me, thanks to the Democrats. More than 1 million abortions. That was a 12-year high in abortions. They harvest the organs and use them for medical experimentation. If I remember correctly, the Nazis, Dr. Mengele, they did experiments on children and twins and babies and blue eyes. And now the Democrats, they harvest the organs of the 1 million. You think the Nazis ever killed 1 million babies in a single year? Babies, just babies. Certainly more than 1 million people. The Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler and all that. But never mind that. And isn't it the Democrat Party that is on every major college campus, especially the Ivy League campuses, demanding that the Jews get off campus and that Israel be wiped out from the river to the sea, the River Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea, most of them chanting that don't know the river or the sea. But never mind that. Yale professor who studies fascism fleeing U.S. to work in Canada. We shouldn't let him. Should probably throw him in a gulag. What do you think? Jason Stanley, who says grandmother fled Berlin with his father in 1939. Why didn't he stay and fight? Come on. His grandmother fled Berlin with his father. Little baby, I guess. Says U.S. may become, quote, fascist dictatorship. They're quite amazing, aren't they? Based on what? First of all, I'd like to have him on the radio show. He should call in. He really should. Jason Stanley, call in 888-630-9625. The first question will stump you right out of the gate. Define fascism. And that'll stump him because he's a Yale professor and it's his area of study, and he wouldn't be able to sum it up for you in a cogent fashion. A Yale professor who studies fascism, interesting choice in field of study, is leaving the U.S., not just Yale, but the United States, to work at a Canadian university because of the current U.S. political climate, which he worries is putting the U.S. at risk of becoming a fascist dictatorship. They just put fascist dictatorship in quotes. We must have audio of Yale threatening the Jews of the violent mobs and the Quad at Yale, terrorizing the Jewish students and you can't wear. How many? We've done audio here of students at Ivy League universities in Columbia and Harvard and Yale being interviewed and saying, well, I don't dare wear a Star of David on campus. I don't dare wear a yarmulke on campus and reveal my Jewishness on campus because it's too dangerous, right? And this is the Poison Ivy League today. And this guy's leaving. Maybe he's leaving because it's not fascist enough. They haven't set up a gas chamber or something, these guys. Jason Stanley, who wrote the 2018 book, How Fascism Works, : they love their colons. The politics of us and them. And now he's leaving us and going to them, see, because he's the politics of us. And no sense of irony, these people. Biggest hypocrites in the world. Has accepted a position at the University of Toronto's Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. Do they pay as much as Yale? I wonder, because now they can say, hey, we got this Yale professor. He fled the United States because they're almost securing their borders. Stanley told, and again on the, we're starting the Rachel Morin trial, the murder of the mother of 5 in Maryland by an illegal alien, thanks to the Democratic Party, who opened our borders and waved in gangs from all over the world. Stanley, the professor, told Daily News, a philosophy profession website, naturally, that he made the decision to raise my kids in a country that is not tilting toward a fascist dictatorship. You should do that. And in the meantime, while you're in Canada, we'll protect you and all of Canada from fascists and other communists everywhere. He said in an interview that Columbia University's recent actions at Columbia University moved him to accept the offer. He was moved. Last Friday, Columbia gave in to the Trump administration by agreeing to a series of demands in order to restore $400 million in federal funding. These changes include crackdowns on protests. It wasn't a crackdown on protests. That's not no, the anti-Semitism on campus is huge. One requirement was that the protests, they have to stop wearing masks, which are not for the Wuhan Red Death out of communist China, but because they're concealing their identities from law enforcement, knowing that they're going to commit crimes. And he's a pro-crime professor, it sounds like to me. So last Friday, Columbia gave in to the Trump administration's series of demands to restore $400 million in federal funding. Why do we give $400 million to Columbia University? Let's start with that. You're fired. Whoever came up with that must have gone to Columbia University, and you're fired. So agreeing to a series of demands. These changes include crackdowns on protests. They don't define that in this fake article. Increasing security power. You mean putting law enforcement on campus so students feel safe when they walk across the campus of Columbia University in New York City? Is that it? And internal reviews. The only words in quotes are the words internal reviews of some academic programs like the Middle Eastern Studies Department. I mean, when they're inviting the jihadis in who are affiliated with Hamas, is that because they want to import radical Islamic jihadi terrorists in the name of liberalism, naturally, who would hang most of these people from yardarms, but never mind that. When I saw Columbia completely capitulate, well, don't take the $400 million. Not $400,000. One university, an Ivy League school that has tens of billions in endowments, and why are we giving them $400 million a year in taxpayer dollars? Why are bus drivers and nurses paying their tax dollars into a kitty that is distributed among Ivy League institutions? You have any explanation for that? I don't want to be paying my tax dollars. I don't want my tax dollars going to Columbia University or to Harvard or any place else. So Stanley said he wasn't concerned about his ability to continue his scholarship at Yale, but the broader climate against universities played a role. Now, the only reason any of this has come up is because of the genocidal Jew hatred, the anti-Semitism, which is so rampant on campuses, in particular, it would seem, Ivy League campuses. And the Democrats don't only tolerate it, they love to use the word celebrate. They celebrate the anti-Semitism. They say, it's free speech. Yeah, I guess the Nazis in the 30s and 40s exercised a whole lot of free speech, didn't they? Boy, nobody had free speech like them. He's not concerned about his scholarship. He just wants the $400 million for Yale, I guess. Pretty amazing stuff. And honestly, I've got to say, why are we giving them money? $400 million in federal funding to one rich boy university in 1 year. You ought to be gassed. See, that's a little fascist reference there, the Nazi reference and all that stuff. They're amazing, aren't they? Yes, they are. Boy, oh boy. So he wants to leave the country. You should. You should get in Canada. Hey, we sent him to Ireland with Rosie. Big, fat, loud, lesbian Rosie. Social media posts spread, noting the alarm sounded by a scholar of fascism leaving the country over its political climate. Sure. Nicole Hannah-Jones, a radical left-wing extremist Jew hater. The journalist and creator of the 1619 Project, an epic lie of historic proportion. She pretends that the United States of America was not founded in 1776, but in 1619, when the first slave arrived in America. First of all, that's not when the first slave arrived in America. The Spanish arrived with the first slave in America long before 1619. But that's a lie. So that's a lie. And that's not, and you guys are the party of slavery and the bullwhip and the plantation and the Confederate States of America. So Nicole Hannah Jones created the Big Lie, the 1619 Project, anti-American, frothy, lunatic, racist, ahistoric. Wrote on social media platform Blue Sky, when scholars of authoritarianism and fascism leave U.S. universities because of the deteriorating political situation here, we should really worry. Yeah, you guys should worry. I think you're worrisome people anyway. They love to worry. They're not happy unless they're not happy. Pretty amazing stuff. So you should, and these fake academics with their 1619 projects and the big, and that's what they teach on college campuses. You guys, and then we give them $400 million to keep the lie going at just one Ivy League university that Barack Obama went to. He hates America. He's a racist. He thinks he can slow the rise of the oceans by sheer force of will. Isn't he amazing? The Democrat Party. Yes, sir. And yeah, the environment on universities. The reason eyebrows first were raised at what was going on in American camp. Well, first of all, you guys are racists, and you run racist institutions. You have racially segregated graduation ceremonies. You have racially segregated areas of study. You have racially segregated dormitories and housing for students. You have racially segregated graduations, all right? And you discriminate against Asians because they study too much, scored too high on the test, scored too well on the tests. Therefore, you have decided to discriminate against Asians by denying them slots at these Ivy League institutions because they have done too well on their own and they don't conform to and fall into the left-wing race trap that all people who are not white Anglo-Saxon Europeans are discriminated against in the United States. That's the opposite of the truth, the big lies. And then, okay, so you had all that, and DEI and your hiring and promotion practices based on genitalia and melanin levels and sexual orientation. And then you discriminate against the Jews and terrorize the Jews because they were attacked by a genocidal death cult called Hamas and had the biggest massacres since the end of World War II, since the end of the Holocaust. And you guys decide to saddle up with Hamas and not the Israelis, who are obviously the victims in all of this. But you guys decide that the terrorists, who are the real Nazis in this discussion, Hamas and the genocidal radical Islamic jihadis, they're the bad guys of the story. But the twisted left-wing Americans in academia and beyond turn the Jews, who are the targets of the genocidal blood-drenched lunatics, into the bad guys, into the villains of the story. And the genocidal terrorists are the victims, and they must be supported by left-wingers in academia and beyond. That is a mental illness. And if you're looking for fascists, smell yourselves. Are you a yo-yo dieter? You know, you diet, you lose weight, and then you gain it all back again in no time at all, maybe plus a few extra pounds. Then later you say, I'm going to lose it again, and you lose it again, and then you gain it back again and again. Well, breaking free of your yo-yo diet patterns is one of the main reasons that doctors created Lean. Lean from Brickhouse Nutrition is a supplement, not an injection, and you don't need a prescription from a doctor. And the science behind Brickhouse Nutrition's Lean is quite impressive. It studied natural ingredients target weight loss in 3 powerful ways. Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels and helps control appetite and cravings. And it helps to burn fat by converting fat into energy. Listen, if you're tired of losing weight and gaining it back again, if you want to lose meaningful amounts of weight at a healthy pace, Lean was created for you. Let me get you started with 20% off when you enter PLANT20, PLANTE 20, at Lean. It's takelean.com, takelean.com, and the code is PLANT20 at takelean.com. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, and is not a substitute or alternative to care from a healthcare provider. I got to tell you, so another professor gone, bye-bye, have a nice trip. I'll throw $5 in for your train fare, pal of mine. Adios.
The Bullocks, next door, real right-wingers. American flag up every day. Real fascists. Ought to be gassed. You know the type.
Hi, Michael. Let's revisit the I got to get to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, too. They fired the comedian they hired, who's not funny at all, but she is an LGBTQ plus woman of color. And the president of the White House Correspondents Association is an LGBTQ man of color. And they don't care if it's funny. They just want to firebomb something. Let's go back to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Roger, calling from beautiful Peoria, Illinois. How does it play in Peoria? Roger, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Well, you play great in Peoria, and I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. I listen every morning. You're a great American. I wanted to mention I'm long in tooth. I'm 91 years of age, still in radio, by the way. And I remember in the 1940s when my family had a party line. A party line was 4 or 5 other families sharing the same phone line. And when Dad would pick up the phone to make a call, if someone was already on the line, he did the right thing, the honorable thing, the moral thing, and would hang up. My question is for Mr. Goldberg. He knew when he was hooked up that he should have hung up, but he didn't. And so it kind of reflects the lack of moral principles by Mr. Goldberg. I think he ought to be horsewhipped with a real horse for what he's doing. And now he's running around to all of these TV stations to be interviewed, engaging what I call journalistic masturbation.
I've got some of that coming up for you, as a matter of fact. You're right. You're 100% right, Roger. And, you know, these words that you use, the moral thing, the honorable thing, those are not in fashion.